All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hello and welcome to Explain Like I'm Five. This is a show where we usually try and get people on to explain stuff in a sense where even I can understand it, but sometimes, well, we go a little off the rails as we have seen before. Today with me, I have the fantastic Megan Lewis from Digital Hammurabi. Megan, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. I've been very, very excited about this. Whenever, usually I sort of will talk about, coming to the decision of what people want to talk about. Hello, that's the cat who decided to jump up on the desk. So whenever you were sort of like, oh, I really, really want to talk about our charity, our nonprofit, and that's Humans Against Poor Scholarship, right?
Yes.
I love that so much.
Thank you. It started out as a very tongue-in-cheek thing, and then it stuck. So,
and it's so perfect because like the content that y'all do is both like smart and snappy. So it's very fitting for what y'all do to begin with. So it's absolutely wonderful and I love it. So tell us a little bit about how it got started.
So for those who don't know, Josh and I are both ex-grad students, recovering grad students, if you will, which is a good place to be. And when he graduated and when I withdrew from the program, one of the things that really struck us was, well, two things really, how financially crippling it can be to go to grad school, and how difficult it can be to kind of transition from an academic setting to like the real world and talk to people about your research and have them understand what you're talking about and not kind of make the assumption that they have the same level of knowledge as you do. Which is really difficult because you've spent like 7 years really only talking to your professors and other grad students who have all been through the same educational experience that you have. So one of the things that we wanted to do, well, again, two things. We wanted to try and help ease some of the financial burden for PhD students, and I'll get into that a bit more later. But we wanted to also give them the opportunity to kind of practice talking to non-specialists. Because especially with the job market, I mean, really, it's never been great for humanities students in academia, and it's getting worse. So you graduate and you don't have a job and you don't know really what to do or how to like adequately communicate what you're doing. So we thought that a good way to kind of bridge this gap and give students the experience that might be useful for them if they wanted to do something like go into public scholarship was to give them like a practice run at talking to a non-specialist audience about their research. So that's kind of where HAPS started. And the way it works is that we take donations throughout the year from anyone really who wants to give us their money. If you want to give us your money, we'd appreciate it. You go to hapsfund.com. There's a lovely big donation button. So we take donations throughout the year, and then in like April, we put out a call for applications, and it's open to all current PhD students who are working in a field related to the ancient Near East. So that includes Egyptology, biblical studies, Assyriology, art history, really any of that stuff. So we take in applications, and then every applicant has to go through a half-hour interview on our YouTube channel on Digital Hammurabi. So we kind of actually do something very similar to what you do with Tell Me Like I'm Five. We have like 15 minutes where I ask them to just give a really brief summary of what they're researching and then what they're planning on doing during the following summer. And then we take 15 minutes for audience questions, which is amazing and can be completely bizarre and off the wall. But half the time our audience comes up with super perceptive questions that I would never have thought of in a million years. Yeah, it's really cool. And then once we've interviewed everyone, we'll ask everybody who has donated to the scholarship to vote for like the top 3 students or the top 3 projects that they want to see funded. because one of the things that actually we think is really important is giving people a stake in research and a stake in academia, because there's this like quite a big divide really between people who pursue higher education for like 2 decades or something crazy like that, and people who either don't go to college or go to college and then are like, you know what, I'm good, I want to actually do something else with my life, which is an excellent choice. So kind of giving people access to that research and giving them like a say in what's happening is it's really important. So everyone votes, and then we have 3 students that we fund. We give them $2,000 each to cover their summer expenses. A lot of students in PhD programs actually don't get paid over the summer, which is
yeah.
it's really problematic, especially if you're doing stuff like excavating or carrying out research projects, because you're expected to keep up this punishing level of academic work and somehow also pay your rent and buy food. And sometimes there's funding available, sometimes you can apply to grants, but not always. So we're trying to kind of help smooth that process over. So they get $2,000 a month, $2,000 each, and then in the fall they come back and kind of report back really and tell everyone and tell the people who donated what they did, how they got on, what kinds of things they learned, what progress they made in their dissertations. It's a really, really fun process.
That's really, really awesome. And coming from somebody who I'm one of those who, did some college and, there's just, that's a whole long backstory. But it feels like, the whole program feels like it is making it more relatable.
Yeah.
It's like you said, there is that sort of that divide, that chasm between, people like me who this is not something that's on their mind on a regular basis, and somebody who is pursuing the academia stuff. Is that a dog making noise? Couldn't tell if that was one of my dogs making. I was like, I heard something. What did I just hear? Somebody who is pursuing this, as their way of making sure that they're expanding their understanding of the world. And that's so cool to me. Like, that's so cool. Just the idea of, always wanting to make sure that you are broadening your horizons and stuff like that. That's so, like, I don't have that kind of drive. So the people that do have that kind of drive, I'm always just all like, I admire that. I really, really do. And especially if you're, younger and have that sort of drive. Because I feel like it's not a kids these days thing, because it's not kids these days. Because kids these days, I think, are more driven than they were in, I would say my time. But
my
I'm
13-year-old is
old.
like way more switched on than I was at her age.
Yeah.
Like way more engaged than I was.
And that's amazing to me. I'm like, I really wish I still had that sort of, or that I had that in the first place, really. So that's really, really cool. So I was like browsing through and looking like at the website and everything the last couple days and just beforehand. Y'all fairly recently got your nonprofit status, right?
Yeah. I applied in March. I can't remember when we got the official approval, but we are an official nonprofit, which is actually really, really exciting, because it opens up a bunch of funding opportunities for us. We can apply for federal grants, and it means that everyone who donates to us can actually use it as a tax write-off, which is always a bonus. So that was... Yeah, I'm really proud of that. And in association with that, we also got an official board of directors, because until then it was just kind of me and Josh running things from our front room. So he's kind of taken a step back. I'm the president, and we have 5 on the board of directors. They're all either PhD students or one is the graduate researcher in Oxford. And they're all really great, really like engaged in getting public scholarship going. So yeah, I'm very excited.
That is really, really cool. And that's, I mean, it makes such a big difference in everything. So
Mhm.
that's really, really awesome. So congratulations. That's
Thank
really, really
you.
cool.
We
Yay.
also this summer started a new grant program. So it used to be
Mhm.
just the summer scholarship, and we've done that for 2 years now. But we've also started taking donations for something we're calling the Black Scholars Matter initiative,
Mhm.
which is aimed at getting Black undergraduates kind of like jump starting them into grad school if that's what they want to do.
Mhm.
One of the things that ancient history kind of struggles with is it's a predominantly white field. Um, like I think there's maybe one Black Assyriologist, maybe, and a
Mhm.
handful from other different minority groups, but mainly we're white people. So one of the what we're trying to do is start Black undergraduates who think they want to or might want to go on to grad school. We're giving them $1,000 towards conference expenses, because a
Mhm.
really crucial part of building your career in the fields that we cover is going to conferences. It's networking, it's presenting your research and kind of listening to other people's research and really starting that kind of group of relationships that is going to see you through the rest of your career. So we'll be giving them $1,000 towards travel or food expenses or whatever else they need, but also putting them in touch with people who will be at the conference and will mentor them through the process. Because it's actually very intimidating. I mean, even for me as a like 30-something-year-old woman, it's intimidating to walk into a conference full of people whose work you've read and studied for
Mhm.
years and feel like I don't really belong here. And it is even more intimidating if your skin color doesn't match everyone else's, and your background maybe doesn't match the backgrounds of the people around you. So having those points of contact to kind of guide you through and go with you to panels and introduce you to people who may be your future professors is actually really, really valuable. So
Yeah.
we're going to offer 4 of those in total, 2 to the National Egyptological Conference and then 2 to the like archaeological and Assyriological conferences to
Mhm.
just help people along a bit.
That's really, really cool. And I think that really goes hand in hand, I think, with wanting to make sure that, because I know that, that like Black Lives Matter and stuff is something that's very, very important to y'all, that movement and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, I mean, it should be important to everybody. Um, but it goes hand in hand with making sure that you're amplifying Black voices and making sure that people are getting these opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that's really, like, I love that so much. I just love, like, I'm such a sucker for, like, and I say sucker, but like I have a soft spot in my heart for like charities and nonprofits and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so this just makes me so happy. I love this stuff. I really, really do. Like, it seems so silly, but it's like,
No, it's really, really important, and it's one of the things that both Josh and I have struggled with is that we have had and do have enormous privilege. Like our educational privilege is massive. And even though I grew up poor, I grew up in a family that really valued, well, saying valued is wrong. I grew up poor, but I still grew up with advantages that a lot of people don't have. And
mhm,
finding a way to kind of use those advantages to help other people who are being held back deliberately or otherwise was really important. And I did an interview in the summer with a fantastic PhD student. She's a classicist called Bethany Hux. And
mhm,
she gave a very powerful account of what it's like being a Black woman in academia, and the difficulties that she has had. And it was just like, this is a thing that I can do. It's not massive, but it's a start, and it will, I hope, help get a much more diverse group of people into the field that I love.
yeah, and I imagine it's something that, when you're sort of in the thick of it, when you're in the middle of your studies and everything, it's not something that you necessarily think of.
I never noticed, honestly, and
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to say that, but I never noticed for years. And
Mhm.
then it suddenly hit me, and I was like, shit, all of my professors are white.
Mm-hmm.
like all of them, through undergrads all the way to my PhD. Um, and the majority of scholarship that I read is by white academics, and there's a really fantastic group of work, like a great corpus of work, like done by Middle Eastern scholars that I can't read because I don't read Arabic, which is a massive, massive disadvantage, and kind of rather arrogant, honestly, that I study this ancient world and I don't read the language of the people who inhabit it and whose cultures I'm studying. And one day I would like to fix that, but it's going to take a while. But just realizing that we do have this massive disparity and this massive inequality in the field was very eye-opening. Very
Yeah.
eye-opening.
Yeah. And I again, it's such a soft spot in my heart for all of this stuff. Like I cannot even tell you. I'm gonna go ahead and put a link for the donate button in the chat right now,
Thank you.
just to make sure everybody does, because I did include a link to HAPS Fund in the description.
Mm-hmm.
So if y'all are interested in going to reading more about it, it's in the description. So y'all check that out, but not right now. Don't quite check it out yet. Like hold off a little bit. So I was there. My coffee has not completely and totally
Don't
kicked in
worry.
yet, so I'm just all like, shift. Um. Oh gosh, what was I going to say? Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm all over the place today.
It's
I don't know why
okay.
I'm all over the place. It's one of those days. So what y'all you were saying about doing the interviews on YouTube
Mm-hmm.
for them. What was it that sort of made y'all sort of go, oh, okay, like we want to do this on YouTube? But was it sort of like a we want to make sure that they're getting as much exposure to their research as possible, or was it like a we want to put them through this?
It was definitely
Not
not the
seriously, of course.
latter. No. So when we came up with the idea, our main concern was actually this is going to be super stressful for students who have probably never spoken to like a general audience about their work before. But we
Mhm.
decided that actually the advantages far outweighed any problems. YouTube gives us a very big audience. It means that students and their research get the biggest exposure we can possibly give them. But it also, possibly more importantly, it makes academic work and academics available to and relatable to people who aren't academics themselves, who are
Mhm.
like interested non-specialists. And our channel is full of people who like do their own research on their own time just because they love it, or they've heard of Mesopotamia before and why not? I'll watch a couple of videos. So it means that people have like that access to like essentially new and cutting edge research. This is stuff that is being carried out by students. They're going to write up their reports, they're going to finish and publish it, and it gives people access to this information, A, before it's published, which I think is really exciting, and B, directly from the mouth of the person who's doing that research, which means that it humanizes the whole experience. I
Mhm.
think one of the massive problems that academia faces is that it's really difficult to talk about academia and talk about it in terms of people and individuals rather than this like great monolithic university experience.
Mhm.
And what you have with PhD students is a group of people who have very diverse backgrounds, very diverse interests, but they're all passionate about what it is they're doing. And
Mhm.
giving non specialists access to that passion and to that personality, I think really helps make the research more interesting and make it more accessible. So you don't have to sit down and kind of thumb through a really dry academic report.
Yeah.
You can like be engaged in it and be in dialogue with someone, which is again why we insist that our students take audience questions, because creating that dialogue and engaging people in something that they might not really care about otherwise, I think is very important in terms of keeping the humanities going as a field. Because if
Yeah.
you give people a stake in it, they care.
They really do. Yeah. And it's so much like it it is about accessibility, and it is about, making sure that somebody, even like me, can sort of understand it. And I think that's what I really really like about y'all's channel too, like in general, is that you're not just doing this, for their sake. Y'all
Mhm.
modeled that after what y'all have done with your channel too. And
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
It was
that's really
just
awesome.
like graduating, we realized that we could either spend our lives pursuing like an actual academic career and write for people in the field, and maybe 10 people ever would read our work, or we could try and make it accessible to everyone. And what we found, and it was astounding to us when we started out, exactly how many people are interested in this stuff.
Hmm.
It's mind blowing, because the narrative is among specialists that, oh, it's too esoteric, no one's terribly interested, this is stuff that we just kind of write for our colleagues. And actually the truth is people are really interested. You just have to make it understandable, because if you're writing for like the 5 other people in the field who have your background and your interests, you're only going to interest those 5 other people. If you
Hmm.
take the knowledge that you have and write it in a manner that makes it understandable to people who haven't spent 10 years in grad school, actually you get a much larger audience. And I think the best example of that is actually Josh did a Sumerian grammar video series. And Sumerian is like the first written language that we have available to us. It's really fascinating. It's a weird, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but it's a weird language. And it's a language isolate. So it's actually not related to any language that we know of, dead or alive.
Hmm.
And it gets taught in grad schools, and you go through this really rigorous process. And unless you go to grad school, it's a really difficult thing to learn, because
Hmm.
the books are written for people who, like, the teaching grammars we have are written for people who already know Sumerian, or already have an understanding of the grammatical structure or how languages work, or they're using that book alongside taking classes from an instructor. So if you just are interested in Sumerian, you can't sit down and pick up one of these books really and work your way through it. It's very disheartening. So
Right.
he threw together a grammar video series for like introductory Sumerian. It's easily the most viewed set of videos on our entire channel. Like
Oh, I
the
bet.
first, it's ridiculous. And then he sat down and made a book out of the first, like the introductory video series. And like we sell about 200 copies a month,
Nice.
which is like, I didn't think there were 200 people in the world who would be interested in it, but people are really fascinated by this stuff, and giving them
Yeah.
access to it is, I think, really important.
Yeah. Um, so what have you found, like, what has been, I guess, you shouldn't technically play favorites. I realize this. What of the, the interviews that y'all have done and stuff, what has been like the topic that you sort of found the most like, "Oh my god, this is awesome." Do you have anyone
Yes.
in particular, or is it sort of everything is just, I mean, I imagine everything is, it's got the different aspects to it and everything. It's
Mhm.
different, like, but has there been any one that has particularly interested you the
I
most of
think
the stuff that's been presented?
so. The interview I did with Bethany Hux was fascinating, because she's looking at how Roman emperors use Egyptian iconography, and how
Mhm.
people take and reuse other cultures' work is absolutely fascinating to me. I also did a couple of interviews with a PhD. Oh no, she's a graduate professor now. No, graduate researcher. Sorry, different titles.
Mhm.
She's actually on the board of HAPS. Dr. Moody Al Rashid. She works in Oxford, and she was like one of our first interviews, and she works on medical texts. And we spoke about gynecology in the ancient Middle East. And that was fascinating, because Moody has this really great ability to take the ancient world and make it highly relatable. So she wrote a few years ago now an article on like a journal, an online journal thing on like depression, and how her
Mhm.
experience of the depression has informed her as a scholar and how she relates to the ancient world because of it. And our discussion was about, like, we talked about miscarriage. Both she and I have had multiple miscarriages, and about how that's kind of a common experience throughout history, and looking at how ancient peoples dealt with that kind of thing, and like the rituals and the prayers that they performed to prevent them. It was really, really fascinating. She's very engaging.
Nice. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing how, there's this common thread, throughout, all of these civilizations. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many common threads that you find that you don't realize until somebody actually does put in the work to it, and
Yeah.
make sure that they can, understand it. And that, to me, that's amazing that people are so willing and so excited to, want to understand more about those who came before
Mm-hmm.
us, even if it seems like there's such a disconnect. Because it's there's sometimes, that you're talking about all of this stuff, and it's just like, someone who might sort of have peripheral knowledge, you can
Mm-hmm.
sort of, sometimes, admittedly, like me, with a lot of stuff I only have peripheral knowledge about, the eyes sort of glaze over, and you're just sort of like, I don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But like, once, it's just like we've been talking about, once you have the people who are excited about it and that they want to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
it makes everything so much more like, you feel like a connection with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be something that, people, I guess people in academia in general, but, particularly, people in these fields, they they want to feel connected to those who have built, built civilizations before us and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's so cool.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and trying to really get to the bottom of not only why people did things, but the effect that those things had on like society and how their economy worked. And like, ancient economics is not something I understand anything about, but it is fascinating because it has so many little impacts on so much of like ancient life. And
Mhm.
you can like, people have done really in-depth data studies of like economic texts. We have so many receipts, like sales receipts, tax receipts, all this kind of stuff. And like, you read one or two and it's like, okay, so what? But when people gather it all together and kind of run
Mhm.
statistical analyses of it, and you can tell like how many sheep one particular area produced and what they did with those sheep and where they went and what they got in exchange for it, you can actually learn a whole bunch of stuff about how the world worked.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting. And one thing
Yeah.
that I really love is, especially for Mesopotamia, we have a whole load of personal letters. Like,
That's
so it's amazing.
cool.
For people who don't know, Mesopotamian documentation is typically written on clay, in
Mhm.
a script called cuneiform. And the great thing about clay is that it lasts for thousands of years, especially if, for example, a city is destroyed in fire. It's an absolute tragedy, but all of the clay records are essentially baked like in a kiln and preserved and survive for archaeologists to find. So we have people's personal records and like letters from wives to husbands, and between different kings, all kinds of stuff. So you get this really human dimension to the ancient world that it can be quite difficult to get for things like the classics, because so much of their writing was on papyrus and
Mhm.
parchment, and that just doesn't survive in the same way. So
Right.
we have there was a trading colony in what's now Turkey. Um, and one of the things that we have from this colony is all of their personal letters, and many of those were sent from their wives, who they left behind, the merchants left behind in their hometown of Assur,
Mm-hmm.
these women wrote letters to their husbands several thousand miles away, like giving them updates about life, a lot of the times complaining that they'd essentially been abandoned and they had no money and you have to come
Mm-hmm.
home and see your children at some point.
Yeah.
Um, and just getting that sense of who people were and how they lived is fascinating for me. I love it.
Was there like Mesopotamian shit talking that was going on too, like between kings and stuff?
Yeah, kind of. So there's I don't think this one isn't from a king, it's a personal letter again, but it's someone's writing to someone else and saying, it doesn't matter how many times I tell you this, you're not listening. Stop it and listen to me, which is just, it's hilarious. But then we have letters also from, I think, that Zimri-Lim, the king of Mari, which is in modern day Syria, and Hammurabi of Babylon, who I'm sure a lot of people will know from the famous law code. Because of those letters, we know that Hammurabi borrowed some of Zimri-Lim's troops and then just didn't give them back for a
Like,
while.
bye, see you later.
Pretty much. So he used them, and it's been a while since I read through this, so forgive me, anyone listening, if I make mistakes. But he used them to, like, the premise was he needed them to fight off a common enemy, to fight off Elam, which is modern day Iran. Then when the Elamites weren't a threat anymore, he just kind of kept them and used them to fight off a king in like what would become part of his territory, like defeat this king, fight him off. Eventually he sent them back and then went and attacked Zimri-Lim. Hammurabi was a dick, is what I'm saying here.
I feel like I can just like cut that out and use that if I
Yeah.
ever do like a this is what Explain Like I'm 5 is. Like I'm gonna have little clips, and that's gonna be one of them right there.
Yep.
That's amazing, and I love it.
It's wonderful. Oh, and one more letter before we move on. And this is one that my Akkadian professor used to give to first year Akkadian students to translate. And it's this guy writing to a relative saying, the rats you sent me were so delicious that I ate them all. Please send me some more. Which is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Love it.
Does he say, do we ever find out what were the rats originally for consumption?
Yes, I believe they were.
I was gonna say, not. I would worry if there was like, some other,
and other purpose,
dual purpose rats or something like that.
Well,
I'm not
there are
sure.
rats. And again, this isn't quite my area of research, but I believe we do have like references to rats being used as contraception or some kind of medical use for them where you insert them into the body somehow.
I cannot think of any possible way that would be beneficial, but I imagine in context, it would probably, you would see the thought process and stuff like that. And I guess not entirely sure. Not sure, but yeah. So I'm gonna put a link to the main HAPS website in the chat as well. And again, if y'all should totally go donate, because this is just this, and again, coming from somebody who did college, didn't finish because, of multitudes of reasons, financial and otherwise. To me, this is something that is, I don't know why it's something that is so important to me, which seems really, really silly, but I found my calling, niche, whatever you want to call it. I found my career just sort of by crazy random happenstance. And it was not, it wasn't something that I studied for and stuff like that, but I found what I love. And this is, HAPS is supporting people who are doing what they love.
And that
that's
actually
just
comes across
so
really
cool.
strongly in the interviews. And if people are interested, we do actually have on the website details of the different students that we funded and information about their research, just like short little paragraphs. And then if you feel like following up with them, all of the interviews are still on our YouTube channel. But they're
Mm-hmm.
all really passionate people who are doing this because they love it. I mean, you really don't get into this field to make money.
No,
Actually, in my
yeah.
grad school interview, my professor was like, you realize you may never get a job here, which was terrifying to hear at the time, but also really responsible of him.
Mm-hmm.
Because universities produce far more grad students than there are jobs open. And if you want to do it just because you love it, that's fantastic. But know that going in that
Yeah.
you may finish and end up like working in a middle school or doing something completely
Yeah.
unrelated to what it is
Yeah.
you've just spent 5-7 years studying.
Yeah, you're doing it out of love and interest, and
Mm-hmm.
you gotta just sort of accept that at that point. Then you gotta not face the reality. That sounds a little
Be
harsh.
aware of it, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Do you hear a lot from like previous like candidates and people who have
Yeah,
gotten from
actually,
y'all? Do you hear a lot from them?
well, 2 of them are now on the board.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sarah and El, they're both on the board. I actually live streamed a conference that Sarah organized last October at Brown University. And they both produce videos for us on a monthly basis. They kind of do a roundup of like what's happening in the ancient world for people who are interested but don't have time to go and track everything down themselves. So yeah, I hear from them pretty regularly. And then actually, it's not even just Sarah and El, it's Sarah and El and Melina they're all 3 are our first like HAP students and they're all on the board and doing fantastic things. Yes, hi.
Oh, that's really cool.
Doing?
Hello, tiny human.
Do you want to say hi? No. No? Okay, bye.
No. It's important to ask.
It is. He
It's
walked
very
in with an
important to ask.
apple and said hi and now he's gone again. So, okay.
Tiny humans. I love tiny humans so much.
They're hilarious. They are their own brand of hilarity.
Oh yeah, and I'm of the type that this is just total wee tangent, but I always do that. I always want to be the fun aunt where it's like I can have fun and play with the kids and be all like and hopped up
Hand
on
them back
candy
again.
and here you go. Give them back. But I enjoy other people's children a great deal, so it's all good. Yeah. So if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to drop them in the chat. I saw something earlier. I love Tapioca Weasel. Tapioca Weasel's a regular in here. Is atomic physics related to the ancient Near East?
Only if you can find it referenced in cuneiform. So maybe, but probably not.
Potentially, but it has yet to have been discovered. Sorry. So have you found that like whenever are you like actively working on doing the whole like applying for grants and what are you hoping to sort of achieve sort of short term right now?
So everything is a little bit up in the air because of COVID, like for many people. So I don't actually know if our Black Scholars Initiative will go ahead in the next year, because if physical conferences aren't necessarily taking place, then giving people grant money to go to physical conferences isn't really terribly useful. I need to talk to the board about this. What I'm contemplating at the moment is having the application process run, have people apply, allocate the funds, because we have the funds for the next year and I would like to use them. But maybe allocate them on a deferred basis. So say to people, you have this money to use in 2022 when physical conferences are happening again. So that's kind of what I'm thinking of that with that particular program. With the HAPS summer grants, I just keep on doing our like typical fundraising and soliciting donations and that kind of thing. I haven't yet applied to any federal grants, mainly because I haven't really found a lot that we're eligible for. I haven't looked terribly hard because, again, we got nonprofit status, and then my kids weren't in school ever again.
Yeah, there's priorities that are way up
so
there
it's
right
like,
now.
yeah. It's something that is kind of on the list for when I have a free 5 minutes that doesn't involve my second grader saying, Megan, there's a problem. Which, bless her, she's doing really, really well. But the virtual environment they have set up for I want kindergarten's the wrong word, grade school, the pre-K through fifth grade.
Oh,
that one. Thank you. Elementary. Yeah.
Yeah.
The system they have set up.
Where I work.
Well, so I did in the UK, but they call it something different here, and I'm like, I don't know what the word is. But the virtual learning environment they have set up is not terribly intuitive, and even sometimes I have to like email her teacher and say, what are we supposed to be doing here? Because I don't understand and I can't find what you're asking us to look for. So she doesn't stand a hope in hell because she's 7 and is currently spinning in circles over there somewhere. So yeah, that kind of stuff has overtaken my work, which again is the story for a lot of parents at the moment. So I'm hoping once they're back in school that I can like seriously sit down and look into what we can apply for funding wise. But having said that, like I said, the Black Scholars Matter initiative is fully funded. Josh and I actually established that like as donations from what we make in Digital Hammurabi. And we've had so many people say that they want to donate too, that we may end up being able to send more than the 2 students we were planning on it, which would be really, really cool. And I should mention this also. One of the conferences that we're going to send people to has basically said they'll match whatever we do. So they'll...
Yeah, I think I had seen that. Was it the ASOR?
ASOR, yeah, which is fantastic. So they're going to cover conference registration fees, which can be a couple $100, which is not an insubstantial amount of money, especially for an undergrad student. So they'll cover that. They'll cover membership to ASOR for, I think, 2 years, which is great because you need professional membership in order to even attend the conferences. And then they'll match the $1,000 that we put in. So they're doing a really fantastic job. They're another organization that I feel is kind of putting their money where their mouth is in terms of diversity and including people who should be included in their work.
That's really, really awesome. Like it's always very, very, it's very encouraging. I think it's the right word. It's the opposite of disheartening. There we go. We'll call it heartening. It makes me very happy seeing organizations, especially working together to, make sure that not only that people are pursuing what they love and pursuing what they want to pursue and having a way to do it, but also that we're ensuring that there's diversity and that it's representative of, the world that we live in. So that makes me very, very happy.
No, it's wonderful. And one of the comments that I've received, again, it's on that video with Bethany Hux, is like, why does diversity matter? Like, really, if they like, the feeling is if someone is good enough, they will succeed, which is incorrect to begin with. But also like why do we care about diversity? Why does it make a difference? And the answer is because everybody benefits. Because Beth, as a Black woman, will have a perspective on the ancient world that is just not going to occur to me. So she's going to be looking at things in a very, very different manner than I am. So together we can come to a more rounded understanding of how life was, what people were doing, why they were doing it, a much more rounded understanding than we'd have if it was like just me by myself. And that's really, really important. And I think it's worth supporting.
Yeah, I love that. so much. I feel like I always like every single show I always say how much I love this stuff, but today especially because like I said I have such a soft spot in my heart for
Mhm.
charities and making the world a better place
Mm.
and helping people. That's just it's something that I've always loved and it
Mhm.
makes me very happy. So again, I know I just put it in there a little bit ago, but I'm putting the link in there again for the donate because y'all all need to go donate like right now
We're
because
also, and I don't have a date for this yet, but this painting behind me was done by Christina Blackfeather, who's a
Mhm.
YouTuber in kind of around the atheist community. So she did that painting, and the original plan was to auction the painting off to raise money for HAPS. And I made the mistake of telling her how much I loved it, and she insisted that we take it as a gift. So I mean, I'm ecstatic because now we have that gorgeous painting, but she also sent us like a full size print of it that she
Oh wow.
paid to get done. So I need to email her. I emailed her like in the middle of the COVID kicking off, and she's a nurse, so she's been very, very
Yeah.
busy. But
Yeah.
when she has free time, we're going to do like a kind of a live stream raffle. Essentially, I'm going to work out how to get people to buy tickets so that we can raise as much money as we can for HAPS, and then we'll pick a number, and the lucky number gets the print, and we'll send that out to them. And she's done a certificate of authenticity for it. So we need to get that planned, but that is what we
Oh,
will
that's
do in
gonna
the
be
near future. Yeah.
great. Yeah, and we'll be sure definitely on our channel whenever y'all just sort of get stuff situated and everything. We'll be sure to talk about that and
Thank
promote
you.
stuff and everything for
I'll
that. So
definitely I'll let you know
that's
when we
very
have.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really really cool. Um, so say I want to do then this is just,
Mhm.
something I might want to do. You know how people do like the Facebook fundraisers for nonprofits and stuff?
Mhm.
Are y'all eligible for those yet? Do you know if y'all
So
are eligible?
I haven't looked into that. I don't know if you have to register specifically with YouTube. We do have like a registration number that the government issued us that is on the bottom of our website. Legally, we have to
Mhm.
display it. But I'm going to write a note about that because I haven't looked into it, and that is an excellent idea. We can take donations through Amazon Smile now.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
if
Yeah.
you search for, I think, HAPS or Humans Against Poor Scholarship will come up. You can select as your registered charity, and then if you buy on Amazon through Smile, it'll send us a portion, or Amazon will send us a percentage of what you spend.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I love using Amazon Smile. I've changed. I don't know if I've actually changed my. I've done it with Planned Parenthood of Greater
mhm,
Texas for the last like 3 years maybe.
mhm.
I used to work for Planned Parenthood of Greater Texas, so I
We have
had a
a like a local homeless
stake in
shelter
it.
that we have selected.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
really good
yeah.
service. I do kind of think that Amazon should just, round up everyone's sales automatically and send them to a variety of charities, but
They really should. They shouldn't count on people to have to use a link in order to
mhm,
know that they
yeah.
can, Amazon should, give money to charity and that's a whole nother
That
Amazon
sounds like
conversation.
socialism though,
Oh my
Susan, and
gosh. Oh
shh.
my gosh. Careful. Those words are going to start scaring people.
I know, I know.
um
Someone's going to call me a Marxist pretty soon.
oh yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, I imagine they probably already have. And we're,
If they
we're
have, I
here in the
haven't
anarchist
noticed.
like maybe at some point, but I have
I
not
did
seen it.
admittedly stop reading my YouTube comments about 4 months ago, and it has been hands down the healthiest decision I've made for my mental health since leaving grad school. So,
Oh yeah, I bet. And you, especially in this time, making sure that you are
oh yeah,
taken care of and
very
how
important.
much you have going on. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to drop them in the chat. I saw Nathaniel here. No children in this house. We have dogs and a cat.
I was going to
So
say you have different species children.
yeah, one of which has decided to camp out on my lap right now. Hello, you're a kitty.
My dog is on my feet, so
No.
he's happy.
He hasn't let you know anybody's come to the door yet, so
Yes,
so
thankfully.
He's good.
I think the mail came already today, so we're safe.
Yeah, it's like it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, everybody should go and donate because this is really, really something that is it's an amazing just this whole idea of wanting to make sure that people are pursuing what they love and that they're taking care of and pursuing what they love. Like it's such a good and wonderful, wonderful cause. And I mean, just
I
go
love
donate,
it.
y'all.
And it's
Yeah.
and one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize about grad school is how much you get paid varies drastically from school to school. And I will say it's never enough. So when I was at Hopkins, we got a stipend to live off, so it would cover our rent and our food, and we had our tuition paid. And I think as an international student, I had my health insurance included for 5 years, which seems fantastic, right? 5 years of grad school, great, you'll be done, you don't have to pay anything. My department's average until graduation was like 8 years. So once you
you've
hit
got
that,
that gap.
once you hit that 5-year mark, you become responsible for not only your living expenses, but you do have to pay tuition. Yeah, which is pretty steep. And there are ways to decrease it. You can register as a non-resident student, which cuts it down substantially, but you do still have to pay them. Which leads to people taking jobs while they're studying because it's either job or loan, and really no one wants more student loans. So you end up with students who are teaching in order to be able to afford to be students, but they're teaching so much or they're working so much that they actually don't get time to work on their own research, which means it has this horrible knock-on effect. It means that they are students for longer because it takes them longer to do the work that they have to do to graduate. So they're paying more money in the long run, which is unfair and very, very difficult, which is why we try and just help a little bit.
Yeah. It helps make things not quite as cost prohibitive as it can be.
Yeah.
So I love it. It makes me so happy. So we've dropped the donate link. Everybody needs to go and donate very, very soon. Actually, as in when I say very, very soon, please, as soon as we are done here, or even right now with this going in another window, you really need to go in and do that. Well, we're coming up on just about an hour. So we've got the links and everything in there. Do you have, I mean, other than getting stuff sort of organized, if somebody wants to, like, well, I guess other than necessarily Haps, if people want to support y'all and your channel and stuff, where can we find y'all, as if we don't already know?
Well, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/digital Hammurabi. You can watch our stuff there. Obviously, I try and post updates about what we're doing, what's coming up in the community tab, but I don't always remember to do that. Twitter is probably the best place for updates. If you do Twitter, Josh and I are both there. I'm at digi_Hammurabi. I put all of our live streams up there. If you want to just see when our live streams are, you can go to the website, which is digitalhammurabi.com/calendar. And if I have an interview on the books, it's on that calendar. So you can plan ahead of time and work out which ones you want to come to, because if you come to them live, then you get to ask your own questions, which is pretty cool because people always have questions. We also have 3 books out at the moment. We have Josh's book on slavery in the Old Testament and the wider ancient Near Eastern context, which is a really good, a resource book. It gathers together a whole bunch of different scholarship and deals with specific passages in the Hebrew Bible. His Sumerian grammar, which I've already mentioned, is written for someone who has no experience learning languages at all. So if you've always been interested but never had the time, it's a good book to start with because it explains all of the terms. There's a handy index in the back for like grammatical concepts that are explained in the book. And it also has a bunch of different exercises after each chapter, so you can kind of test your understanding and test your knowledge. And book 2 should be coming out in January. And we're also right now getting book 1 translated into French, German, and Arabic.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which I am just so excited about. The French one is pretty much done. The German and the Arabic are due to be done in mid-January. So I'm hoping to have all of those available in February. And then we published one last book on Friday. It's called Learning to Pray in a Dead Language, Education and Invocation in Ancient Sumerian, which gives everyone like a rundown of how we think scribal education worked in Mesopotamia. Excuse me. And then how that is related to like the formation of a scribal elite, and a specific group of priests called the Gala priests, who are responsible for performing these lamentational prayers that were designed to like basically keep the gods happy and make sure that they didn't abandon their cities. Because if they did that, bad things happened. Very bad things. And they are all on Amazon. I'm working on getting them in other retailers because I know a lot of people don't like buying everything through Amazon. So keep your eyes open. I'm going to try and get them. I'm kind of in the process of trying to set up a shop on our website so people can just order directly from us. I think that's pretty much everything.
Yeah, and I included links to your Twitter. Did I include a link to the? I know I included links to. Oh my god, I didn't include a link to your channel. I just realized that I have to the website. I have to the shop.
If they go to the website, they'll find the channel anyway.
Yeah. So knocking stuff over. Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been really nice to talk.
Yeah, everybody needs to go donate to HAPS Fund right now. I'm actually going to go ahead and do that myself.
Thank you.
Because it is an amazing cause, an amazing.
And remember, everyone who donates gets to vote on what research is funded. So it's kind of like America's Got Talent, but for academics. It's slightly less sexy, but much more interesting, I think.
Much more interesting, much more mentally stimulating, that's for sure. All right, well, thank y'all for joining us. Thank y'all for watching. We really, really appreciate it. If you should like and subscribe to us, like and subscribe to Digital Hammurabi. If you want to support Divine Disbelief on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Divine Disbelief. We've got Twitter, Facebook, etc., etc., etc. And we will see y'all next time. Bye, y'all.